Welcome to Up Close and Personal, heard exclusively on MalcolmPresents.com, a streaming network heard round the world and beyond. I better let you get the voice on beyond. Anyway, my special guest today is Michael McShane, who we had on, it seems about 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's been about 2 years, buddy. Yep.
Yeah, so
I've always liked the and beyond tag. I forget where that comes from. Walter Winchell or someplace. It's just like, what were you hoping for?
uh,
Who was hoping for like, we will move beyond time and space eventually.
yeah,
Like
I'm
with
doing like
or-
I'm trying to get sort of like a Star Trek type of
and beyond. Yeah.
and beyond because
Yes.
in
Okay.
actuality we don't know whether we're the only people on the world.
That's true because we don't know. As somebody said at any given time, um, the communications that we've made since the 50s and 60s have traveled out. Now, whether they decayed in that time or there's somebody on the other end who received them in a manner by which they can understand, one of the first things that civilization or group of creatures would see will be massive, long episodes of I Love Lucy
Right. Or MalcolmPresents.com because
or
the,
MalcolmPresents.com
the,
because
the, sound,
both
the
of you,
sound
according,
waves. Well, as I say,
yeah,
a lot of the stars that we see are dead right now because
yes,
because even though how fast does light travel? I think sound travels 186,000 miles per second,
you lost me there.
but I think light
I
is
don't know how
faster.
fast light travels yet.
But anyway,
I
so
refuse to look it up, but I imagine it's yeah quite quick. But
beyond that, what have you been doing the last 2 years?
the last 2 years I've been doing quite a bit of touring in the United Kingdom um, with a guy that I used to do a TV show with there in the late '80s and '90s called "Whose Line Is It Anyway?"
Yeah,
His
they
name is
have that.
Paul Merton. They have it here.
They have it
So
here.
yeah. CW bought it. Drew hosted it and took a
Mhm.
number of the people from the British cast over to this. I wasn't one of them, and I'm not bitter. I'm not.
Yeah, you sure?
Um, I'm not.
But
Actually, I'm not. I'm not. Thank God. I mean, it would have been a great gig, but I've got this other gig. I mean, the fact that, like you say, that once something goes out and people will watch it, or alluding to what you're saying, or backing up what you're saying, it's out there, and it had a huge fan base in the UK. It has a pretty good, if not equal, fan base in the US. Both of the shows, um, most Americans saw the show through, I think, the Comedy Channel or something like when some that were imported from England and some on PBS early on. So there are people that are Americans that never traveled to the UK that are familiar with its origins in the UK. Long story shorter, my buddy left that show about 2 years into it and got onto his own show,
yeah,
which has been a continual hit for 30 odd years. So my friend's been on TV for 30 odd years, which there's nothing like that amount of being in people's living rooms to sway people to go, we got to go see this because it's advertised as something different, as something he used to do. He's doing with his friends. He used to do it with me, and other people will join along who are TV or film stars occasionally. The main team now is me, his wife, who's a improviser and worked the busking circuit in London early on, and is friends with Eddie Susie Izzard.
hmm
So I go to the UK. We have a tour bus. It's very comfortable. We leave from behind the British Museum. It's almost like Batman, just a little alcove we pull out of. It's reserved for the tour bus. The tour bus is owned by a tour bus company, which is owned by one of the members of Iron Maiden. I can't remember him now who it is, but it's not a rock and roll bus. It's a very comfortable bus for older people like us, and we go all the way up to like Scotland, Inverness, all the way up,
What,
and
what have
and then we
you?
do the different cities throughout the UK, the different older Victorian theaters, some very modern ones, in Manchester, especially Salford, which is right outside of Manchester. We play a massive 1,200 seat theater, and it's modern, and it's just great. And so he brings them in, frankly. And those who have seen the show with us, as in the last I've been touring off and on with them more on for about 12, 14 years maybe.
Well, yeah. Well,
So
generally, I used to watch a lot of PBS back 20 years ago.
yeah,
And a
yeah.
lot of the shows that I've seen on PBS, I can't remember them now, but a lot of the shows I've seen on PBS is the original British productions. And somehow I like those more than the American duplicates. I mean, a lot of them have been duplicated.
Well, I think some of them are, and I think they might have gotten a better technique for appealing to the American audiences because early on, I think they thought it was easy just to change a couple of things and it would work. I mean, now the show that my friend is on, Have I Got News for You, but like it's been running for 30 years, there's one here now on CNN, and it's still finding its legs.
Well,
The way the British view television, the deal, really, because they each individual Brit to a degree has made a deal with the government to pay a fee, a license fee. So that license fee money goes into the BBC. We all know this, and we all know it's changed, and the BBC is in trouble with the advent of all these other stations, the internet, the very thing we're talking on. But they always made like it was like a contract because it was a hard contract. You drop £5 a month, and they used to have little vans with radar things going around to see if somebody was watching TV without a license. If they got a signal there was a TV operating, this is pre-digital, and they matched it to the address didn't have a license, they'd fine you. So there's this ongoing responsibility built into it, and they expect certain things. And the BBC, to a large degree, tries to deliver quality and a very British point of view, and they also buy American product. I guess
yeah.
what I'm trying to say is it always appeared in the interest of the cultural offerings like I Claudius. Remember you? I saw I Claudius in the '70s on public television. Um, heck, I saw Marty Feldman, the Marty Feldman Comedy Machine, when I was like 12. It was pre Monty Python. Marty Feldman, who wrote with some of the Pythons early on, did this sketch show. Some of the sketches were written by Python members. The opening animation was done by Terry Gilliam. Um, like a
Well,
like in modern times.
I've always found the for the materials that they have, the British inflections when they speak are much funnier than the Americans doing the same lines. They don't have that same. I'm not sure what it is.
Well, they're not coming from the same place culturally. The class system, which again has been thinned out a bit. Um, the class system said how you determined, like the guys who we ended up, Python, Marty Feldman, Billy Connolly, even earlier that, right? All those guys were moving out away from it. There was a tradition that the news people always spoken was RP, received pronunciation, which is that very posh, calm sounding tone. Um, but I think it's their language, man. I mean,
And
it got enforced on us, and because Brits came over, stayed here, and we accepted it because by that point it felt like a lingua franca for trade. It stayed with all the machinations of all the Germans and the Dutch, just like their dialects are made out of Viking,
yeah.
Swedish, all these really early, and the northern dialects are belong to a lot of that.
When you go on
Um,
tour in England, do you speak with a British accent? They know that you
God,
can
no,
speak it,
no,
or you're an
no,
American.
no, no. British grammar and British vernacular. I think the one thing I will do is I'll up inflect in what they call the interrogative. So, and they'll ask a rhetorically question. So I think it's a very good idea, don't you?
Yeah.
So the up inflect in the language expresses for them, I think, this is me. It connotates interest and continuation. So the next person will link to it. That's a good idea, don't you think? Would you rather do that? Yes, I would rather do that. Let's go do that. Oh, good, proper. It keeps the ball rolling at a nice even level. Now, if you go, do you think that'd be a rather good idea? And nobody said anything, then it becomes a question that person's either mad at you, ignoring you, doesn't think he needs to respond to you because of their class and their distinction. That's all in there, and it's buried deep, and it's all very cheery, and it's all very bright, and that's still there while that all happens. And so I've learned to play certain games. I'll say cheers. I'll call people mate.
Well,
I
I
tend to call
know
people brother.
about 20 years ago, I used to produce a show for radio. Um,
Yeah, that's right. You know
Basically, it's
this.
called Cynic's Choice. And he used to play old comedy albums. And of course, I fell in love with Monty Python back then. It might have been more than 20 years ago.
Hmm.
It could have been 25, 30 years ago. And I noticed when he was producing I'm forgetting the guy's name. He had a British shop on in Santa Monica. They sold all British things.
Got it. Yeah.
He would import it from England. He wouldn't do any of the imitation brands here, where the British company was taken over, and then they produce a lot of, especially chocolate here. Chocolate's had a different
Yeah.
taste.
Nestle. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
when he was doing the recordings, before the punchline came, he would start laughing. With Monty Python, he knew what the gag line was, and he would listen to it. And when they would set up the joke, he would start laughing because he knew what was coming. And I thought that was mainly him. But then I had a whole group of English friends, English rock and roll folks who were living here
Uh-huh.
in Beverly Hills. And when they listened to Monty Python or any of the British materials, comedy, they did the same thing because it was so familiar to them. It's like,
Yeah. I mean, it's the
when the
greatest hits.
tones
I
went
mean,
up, as you were describing, when they heard, the inflection in their voice, they knew a punchline was coming and they would start laughing.
yeah. I mean, definitely when I first heard them, there were things to imitate, and Holy Grail definitely. And then you would
Mm.
go kind of work backwards. They came to film for me. Then I came back to see them on television on PBS, and then realized I know some of these guys, especially the animations in Holy Grail.
It's,
I I saw that there. I think, and it becomes as a way to for guys early on to like be at a party and do a couple of sketches together and get interest from I don't know who, women, men, other people. Hey, I'm hip, I know this, which I used to do. I don't know if you did with the Firesign Theater, which was an American comedy group from the '60s, and they were a political satirical group.
mm.
David Osman, Peter Bergman, Phil Proctor, um, and they did similar in the sense they would do a whole album was an extended riff on a couple of subjects, which became sketches, but were woven orally through audio work that was done by these premier LA audio guys. So they would separate the sound. It was really great stoner stuff. You get high and you hear them walk across the room, and go to the other side of your
Well,
headphones. And
that reminds me of an
but
old joke. This one?
yeah,
What is this?
I have no idea what.
A rabbi walking from temple to temple.
Ah,
Okay, forget about it. You were talking.
that's nice. But no, so it was because they were hip, they were clever. The Firesign were left wing. They were a bit naughty, but they were very intelligent and very erudite. And they did amazing character voices. And the audio, they buried it in layers. Again, you put headphones on, and somebody go, "I don't care about that. I'm good." And he would keep talking and walking as he walked off like old radio theater, so you could hear him go, "Hey, yes," and you hear the door slam. So they
Okay.
did all this heavy world building with the audio, and they were masters at it. Their engineers were, and they lasted a long time. They're very. Robin Williams was a huge fan. I know John Goodman is a very big fan. I am like not comparing myself to them, but one of those guys who sat down and went, "It's hilarious, man."
Well,
It was
they had a
crazy.
whole in this. I think more towards the 70s. Uh, they had a whole invasion of the British comedy teams and the British
Of
actors.
course, yeah, yeah. It was we around the '60s, the rock and roll invasion opened this idea that anything from Britain is worth listening to over here,
Yeah.
just because it's from Britain.
Yeah.
I fell for it too. My dad was going to Europe on just have a vacation with his old army buddy, and he asked me if he wanted me to get him any, if he wanted to get any, he was going to get something for me, and I asked him for a David Bowie album, Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars.
Yeah.
When we're standing outside in a Soho street, dressed in like lame and looking like a fucking hooker, and my dad was like, He did not know what to
He
make
didn't
of
get
that.
it.
Yeah, I knew I was born in 1910. Of course, he didn't get it. I did. I asked him to bring it because he didn't get it, and I wanted a British artist from Britain or a European album. I wanted something from Europe. And I remember when it arrived, he gave it to me. He was also like, gave it to me looking at the cover like, "You want to tell me something?" And I was just very like, "No." I walked out of my room, but it was like a sacred item to me. It was this culture that was all the way over there, and this was a real representation of it. It sounds silly because, but I'm born in 55, so that was like 67, 68. This was a unique item to me.
Oh yeah,
And I thought it was like, and I listened to it and even felt different in my hands to the albums I had here, which is BS, but I completely was like, wow, Aladdin's lamp, you know.
yeah. I first got into British comedy when I listened to, I think it was Beyond the Fringe was on Broadway. Remember that? Have
Of
you heard that?
course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. 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 And
And
Peter Cook and Dudley Moore did
Dudley
some
Moore,
stuff here.
and each of them were brilliant. I mean, each of them were, college graduates, and their whole philosophy was brilliant, but their delivery was super. And of course, that's when Monty Python started going. Was
Yeah,
Monty
to a degree,
Python?
the language set. Go
Was
ahead.
Monty Python? When did they start?
I
From
couldn't tell you. I'd say they started
60s?
writing as writers for the BBC in the 60s. John Cleese is the oldest, so he might have done it even like in 59. Um, but all of them wrote for different straight older comedy acts, wrote the gags. But then generationally, that was happening here. Everything was changing. The Vietnam War, softening of drug use, questioning authority. You had a lot of people
Yeah,
going to college, so there are a
yeah.
lot of like, and those guys were college educated at
Mhm.
Oxford and Cambridge
Yeah,
in
that was
the
a big.
two big schools. So that language set and the transition of the middle class wit, who's sort of remote and not a bit above the culture, they were different because they wanted to be in the culture. They wanted to get drunk. They wanted to get stoned. They wanted to have unprotected sex. They wanted to speak and talk about Marxism. They wouldn't even make fun of Marxism, but not say it's not worth anything. Because on the same hand, they make fun of, like in Life of Brian, where John Cleese, schools Graham Chapman on the grammar that he's doing on the graffiti. It's just made a whole sketch about how to say, something. And he's a pedant, and Cleese plays pedants beautifully. And so that pedantry, that knowledge, the class system,
Yeah,
how do you know he's the king? He's the one not covered in shit.
John
They're
Cleese
very
plays,
astute.
he plays like someone who's really not bright. With the thing that I used to see on PBS is Faulty Towers,
Yes.
and
But he thinks he's better. He thinks he's better than everybody because he
right,
owns a property. So he's very middle class. And he owns a property, and the property is basically his kingdom. It's
yeah,
funny, the building, the hotel, it definitely, it's a tower. It slightly looks like
Faulty Towers,
a
yeah.
castle. It looks like the moat house to like a really big castle.
Now,
And yeah,
when you go on tour, do you have a tendency of picking up the British inflections, or do you catch yourself, going more into the British inflections and their tone of voice versus being a straight
not all
American?
the time. If it's easier, one thing I don't do is I don't, because I think, a somewhat soft middle of the road middle American accent. So I'm from Kansas. I will, because people know me on TV and they meet me, they want me to be an American. So I am, and I'm no, even with the administration that makes an administration to make people go there and go, oh no, I'm a Canadian, eh?
Yeah.
Because they're not. I'm an American, and culturally that's how I was raised. I'm still proud to be part of this country, but I will shift things to make them comfortable. I'll be more American like this. I'll hit my
I guess.
R's. And I'll be more because I want them to know that's who I am, and I'm not trying to be up above them because I'm on TV. An American is on TV, and some of them may know me. So yeah, I'm kind of like I just try to be myself, just try to be a good play the good ambassador by appreciating things in their culture to help connect with them and being myself with them so they don't feel I'm crowding them out. We've always had, I mean, from like, I'm going to go see a play this afternoon about Benjamin Franklin and John Adams.
Mhm.
They had to share a room together while they were hiding out from the British during the Revolutionary War. And, Benjamin Franklin was loved by the English. He was English. They were English. Half of the, they were
Yeah.
English people. They just wanted the king to treat them better. They didn't want to not have a king
Right.
until it got to the point they went, well, it's not going to work out. And that's what happened with Franklin. But the idea that all the niceties, even if Franklin went to Paris, I'm sorry, I'm on Franklin right now. My friend's been to the show, and I'm a fan of
Mhm.
Franklin. He was extolled by the British women and stuff, but he wasn't American. In fact, he went even more American with the French. He wore like a coonskin cap and like a
Yeah.
rough-hewn Hessian coat. He played the game. It's like, howdy, I got a kite,
Yeah.
ladies.
Well,
And
I'm always amazed to find out how young they were. Many of them. They
mhm,
were like in, the mid or early 20s.
yeah, yeah. And he was the oldest, so he was like 30 or something,
Yeah.
maybe 40. He was grandpa.
Yeah.
They didn't, according to some books, they didn't even want him in the room for the Continental Congress. Like, oh man, yeah, he helped get us the French backing for the war.
Oh, yeah.
I know, but he's just there. Look at him with this stick in his fucking hat,
Mhm.
you
When
know. And
when was the last time you were in England? Fairly recently, wasn't it?
yeah, it was end of March.
The end of March.
So I was there from February through March.
Did you find well, I don't know with what you were doing, but did you find a different attitude towards Americans, based on our policies now? Or did you get
Oh yeah, they're
involved
very
at all
critical. Very
speaking?
critical. In the paper, the press is critical. They're not. They're not. They're not crap. Nobody's crappy to me because again, I think they assume after you see the way I play improv and the stuff that I'm not going to be a flag waving MAGA guy. I'm just not it. I'm an old hippie, and that's pretty apparent when I
Hmm.
work. But I have the alacrity that because I'm an improviser, I'll improvise in vernaculars they can understand. I'll make a reference about something like is based on their cultural world, like their cultural television that you may not know. Certain things like the Crankies. There's a couple called the Crankies, and one plays a small boy all the time, and the other's like a frustrated friend or brother. Well, they're actually a couple. But also, when you say the Crankies, they're also known for having a voracious sexual appetite. And in the '60s and '70s, somebody opened a hotel door, and the gal Cranky, who plays like a 9-year-old boy, so she's a small, tiny, rotund woman, being rogered soundly by the bellboy, and her turn, I go, "Oh, you must think I'm such a flirt." So, I say, "Well, you dressed up like one of the Crankies. It's going to get a laugh." I can't do that here because they go, "What is that?
Right, right.
What is that?" So I play into their cultural references. I don't think I'm patronizing them, but the history of popular entertainment in our country, I go all the way back to Weber and Fields, two Jewish guys who, when they would play and do vaudeville, they would go to the town the day before and go to the city hall and look at the city records and go, "Oh, there's a lot of Irish laborers, or there's a lot of Italian laborers." And if there's a lot of Italian laborers, they'd be like, Guido and Tony. If there's Irish laborers, they'd be Pat and Mike. If there were a bunch of Jewish folks there, it'd be Izzy and Mo.
You think?
And so, and some people, when it was that politically incorrect, there was a question posed on them. I go, no, they're business people. And also, these are the theaters where people who make very little money working their butts off go on a Saturday night with their wife, and they want to see their experience on stage. They want to see who they are on stage, not all the way into the '80s Irish Rose. Ain't this a great country where a Jew and an Irish gal can get married and love? Jewish man and Irish gal can get married and love, without the grandmother passing out. Because that's some of the first Broadway, Abby's '80s Irish Rose, with all these songs.
Right.
So all the mixing was even before the mixing. You went to a town, it had X amount of ethnicity in it. You played into that because you're guests in their house. I mean, one of the first rules of live show business, I think, and the early success of television is I'm a guest in your house. If
Mm,
somebody watches this, they're watching it in their home. They're not watching it in a movie
mm,
theater. They're
mm.
watching me talk, you know.
Well,
So
the troop that you go around with, well, what is
yeah.
it? How many are there, first of all? How large is it?
There's a tour manager. There's Paul Merton, Suki Webster, and me. Then we'll have a musical director, a person who plays the piano and improvises with us, the musical improviser. So that's five. You have the bus driver. That's six. Uh,
But the three performers on
yeah,
stage. So the
four.
three performers
Four
on stage, four?
with the musical director, five. So it'd be the main crew is me, Paul, and Suki. Then one other person, sometimes two if we can get a really huge name like David Tennant, play Doctor Who, that kind of stuff. And so we can accommodate 4 to 5 people on
Yeah,
stage.
so
Generally, that's what the improv group is. Yeah,
are they English or they're
yeah, they're pretty much all English. They're all British, either British TV stars or British movie stars. And Paul's a British TV star. Suki's a British performer. I'm the only American.
you're the only American?
I'm the only
Yeah,
American.
I remember I did a thing. It was Terry Thomas was ill, he was dying, but he needed money because he got addicted
Yeah,
to drugs. So in
got
Hollywood,
addicted to pain. Got addicted to pain medicine.
yeah,
He was an incredible.
right.
Yeah,
In Hollywood,
incredible
they
guy.
did a film dedicated, not a film, but a tribute dedicated to him. So at the and I was doing this British show, so we did a tribute to him in the British pub on Third, on Second and Santa Monica Boulevard. That all the
Yeah, the
people
King's
said
Head. It's
King's
called the
Head,
King's Head. Yeah,
and I
the
brought
King's Head.
yeah. Uh,
There was this northern. I live in the King's Head.
but what I did is I brought the tape to England, and they had a tribute for him at the Drury Lane Theater, to raise money.
Wow, man, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and I was backstage. So actually, one I was very impressed with, Phil Collins was one of the guest stars there,
Uh huh.
and he was, a multi-billionaire even back then.
Yeah, yeah.
But he was such a, I mean, he backstage we were just talking. He was like a regular guy. He was talking. He was showing me his new kid. He had all these pictures, and Eartha Kitt was back there. But the thing was.
Oh yeah, Earth's Kit's
Oh
amazing.
yeah. When I was outside the theater, when they were all coming in, especially the telly people, I never knew, I didn't know
Yeah,
who they were,
you
but
know
they
they
had
were.
big crowds there, applauding them and cheering, and I'm sort of like totally out of my element.
Oh, I bet that's really, as they say, that's really lovely. And they backed Terry. He was, he's much loved and imitated. You can do, he had, with the gap tooth thing,
Yeah.
but he also played a man out of his element. He wasn't because he was like the especially sexually active
Yeah.
idiot clown guy,
Yeah.
the idiot clown. I mean, they're still, some people think it's politically incorrect for older women to be leering at older men to be leering at younger women. I guess I don't think Laurel and Hardy being flustered by a beautiful girl, a clown being flustered by a beautiful girl like Chaplin
Mm.
or Terry Thomas or somebody like that is indicative of allowing other horrible things. It is always said that the clown is unsuited for a life that he or wants, and some of his passions are laughed at because they're approached badly because they're a clown. His clowning comes from playing a posh guy. He wasn't born posh. He didn't go to a posh school. Not like Cleese and Palin and all those guys. They all went to Oxford and Cambridge. Terry was lower middle class and that lower class guy who came up in the system and could play that sort of hello, you know. All you have to do to imitate Terry Thomas in Britain is go, he's being an absolute ah. Just make that noise.
Yeah. It,
It's just
it,
he said it in a movie once. He said it. He's being an absolute and they say shower, like they say. He started to say shower, the shower of ill will on a good situation, but it doesn't. It makes no sense. But when you do that, everybody knows that's Terry Thomas, and everybody knows what class is, what his attitude is, and they laugh at him.
yeah, I think. I'm not sure. I think he was in the movie How to Murder Your Wife.
Yeah, with
With,
Glynis Johns.
yeah, I think it was
With
Jack.
Glynis Johns.
Was it Clarence Jones?
No, he did. There was a TV movie. There was a TV series where he played a murdering husband,
Oh, no, no, no. This was where
a
he was
cruel husband, and his wife, and then his wife killed him.
no, I think that this was, I think, Jack Lemmon, and Jack Lemmon was
Probably. I think you're right. I think you're
uh,
right.
uh,
In
uh,
this case, it was a sort of a comic Twilight Zone,
he was
comic
like a
Night Gallery
butler,
series. There, yeah,
a man's man. What do you call it? Like a butler to
a
Jack
man. I
Lemmon.
know, a man's servant, a man's man. Yeah, I
Right.
love that.
And
Buffling. How do you buckle, sir?
and he was so funny because, well, the movie was funny. If nobody have ever seen it, you should see it. It was called How Do You Murder Your Wife? And it starts out, and
Yeah,
it's sort of like you almost think it's someone at a eulogy, at a funeral. All these men getting
yeah,
drunk and drinking, and it turns out it's
yeah,
not.
yeah,
It turns out he's getting married.
yeah. And they're all crying.
Right, it's a bachelor party, and the guy's
Yeah,
getting married, but they're all
right.
acting like it was a funeral and someone died. And I have to end there. When are you going back to England?
I go back in July. I go back in
July.
July, and I'll be gone for more than a couple of months this
Yeah.
time. It's to be the last of this kind of tour I do, this comedy show. My
Uh,
friend's moving on to do other stuff, which will take up a year or two, some televised stuff that I'm not part of that scene.
oh,
So it's been really nice. It'd be nice to spend the time with him, and
yeah.
it's a gift. It's all this stuff. You'll hear all of this saying it's a
Right.
gift, and it really is.
Did you have anything
It's
booked right now coming up in the US that we could promote?
nothing
No.
right now, man. I'll let you know.
Yeah, let me know and I could get you on the show. And
I'd be
so
glad to. Oh, I think it's lovely because I know where you are. You're in the you look like you control an entire studio,
I do.
and it's fantastic.
I
I
have
did.
millions and millions of subscribers.
If I'd not seen you schlepping around this property every day, I would think you were a media mogul. It's
No,
fantastic.
what I do is since I work, my studio is in the house. So
Yeah,
I do my
yeah,
taping and things like this, and I work, for a few hours a day, a few hours in the morning, and I get
yeah.
restless. So, people, work in an office, go outside. I go outside and just
Right.
do my walking
That's smart.
because I
That's
don't want to
smart.
grow old to be an old man who can't get out of a chair. But anyway,
Ah,
Michael, our time is
on,
up.
on a better note. Thanks, pal. It
And
was nice
thank you
to
very
chat with
much
you,
for
man.
joining. And let's hope we
I
can get
will,
together
Malcolm.
before another 2 years.
I hope so, Malcolm. Thanks,
Okay.
pal.
Thanks
I'll
again.
bring it
Okay. And
until
you're
again.
listening to Up Close and Personal, heard exclusively on MalcolmPresents.com. Just go to MalcolmPresents.com and you see several other shows, Tush Twins, Many Shades of
Around the
Green
world,
on various
around the
subjects
world and beyond.
and it's around the world and beyond.
Beyond.
Have a
Bye,
great
buddy.
week. Bye.